You think respect is something you show after you win. But what if the samurai bowed before the blade was drawn? Why would a warrior, trained to kill without hesitation, lower his eyes to an enemy who might end his life? Why would silence matter more than strength? Why would a single step taken slowly mean more than rushing forward? Every morning begins the same way. A quiet stare, measured footsteps, a pause before action. What if respect was never about politeness but about control? And what if losing respect is why modern life feels so loud, so unstable, so hollow? Stay, because what they called Ray was not weakness. It was the discipline that held chaos in place. That morning, there was no drumbeat, no command shouted into the air, only a dew-dampened earthen courtyard and an old wooden staircase descending from the eastern corridor. He stood there longer than necessary and not from hesitation. But because the moment to step had not yet arrived, they called him a samurai. But the title revealed very little. He was not the most distinguished, nor the name spoken first in the ranks. The fabric at his shoulders had worn thin. His sword was cleaned every morning, though it was rarely drawn. Each step he placed onto the courtyard was the same, no quicker, no slower. He grew up in a world where order was never spoken aloud. No one needed to be reminded whom to bow before. No laws were written on walls. Everything was understood through the distance one kept, through lowered eyes, through silence at the proper moment. His struggle was not with strength, nor with courage. It lay in something far harder to see, the ability to remain upright when no one is watching. There were mornings when he stood before those steps knowing he would face someone of higher standing, or someone older, or an enemy whose blade had once drawn blood. No emotion was named, only a single repeated act. He bowed just enough, no deeper, no carelessly. Then he descended into the courtyard, in silence. He did not seek to defeat anyone. He sought only to keep the world around him from slipping out of rhythm. And that was the true trial. The fracture did not come from a battle. It came from smaller things, harder to see. One morning, as he descended the familiar steps, someone was already waiting in the training yard. Not a superior, not an elder, just a newcomer, young, faster, and speaking more than necessary. The distance of standing was shortened. The gaze was not lowered. The greeting arrived a beat too late. No one spoke. But the air had changed. In the days that followed, the misalignment repeated itself. Bows became hurried. Footsteps on the packed earth no longer matched. Voices intruded into silences that were meant to be kept. He realized it not in a moment of eruption, but on a very quiet morning, when he stood before the staircase, his hand already resting on the hilt of his sword, yet his body did not move. Not forward, not back, only still caught between a choice that had not yet been named. If he ignored this shift, everything would become easier. No need to bow for so long. No need to keep distance. No need to wait for silence before speaking. But if he did that, something would leave him even if no one else noticed. That day he faced his first enemy without a sword. It did not challenge him. It did not shout. It did not threaten. It only whispered, "No one will notice." The next morning he stood again before the steps. Dew still lay thin across the yard. Everything looked exactly as it had the day before. Only he was no longer certain whether he was protecting order or merely holding on to an old habit the world no longer respected. And in that silence, the true crisis began. The turning point did not come when the sword was drawn from its scabbard. It arrived on a morning when everything was too quiet to blame on circumstance. He stood on the old steps, where years of footsteps had worn the wood smooth. Below, the training yard was still empty. No gazes, no challenges, only a silence that lingered longer than usual. An old master passed by. He did not stop at once. Only when his foot touched the packed earth did he turn back. He did not ask whether the man was stronger. He did not ask how many battles he had won. He simply looked at the distance between them, then stepped back exactly one pace. There was no lecture, only an action. He understood immediately, not because it was explained, but because his body had known that language for a very long time. Ray was not a manner adopted to be liked. It was a boundary that kept a person from spilling beyond the limits of himself. If distance disappeared, everything would collapse. Not at once, but little by little through every shortened warning, every abbreviated bow, every silence broken. He remained still on the steps, did not advance, did not retreat. Then, for the first time in many days, he stepped down more slowly, not to prove anything, only to restore a rhythm that had been lost. From that morning on, he made a decision that required no declaration. He would keep the rituals even when no one demanded them. He would bow even when facing an enemy. He would keep silence even when words could help him win more quickly, not for the sake of tradition, but because if he lost this, the next thing to disappear would be himself. Morning began before the light had time to spread across the tiled roofs. No bell, no one calling. He opened his eyes in the familiar darkness, where the chill still clung to his skin. His body did not yet want to leave its resting place. But he did not rush to rise. He sat still for a long while, letting silence move ahead of action. Only then did he place his feet on the floor. The steps leading to the courtyard were still there, unchanged. Only the footsteps were different. Each morning, he descended the staircase one beat slower than before, not from fatigue, but because he was learning to give each step weight. The training yard was still dark, no one watching, no eyes to witness the bow. He bowed, though there was no need. Not deeper than yesterday, not shallower, just enough for the body to remember. The hardest part was not waking early. It was keeping every movement from becoming hurried, not shortening the bow because no one was looking, not breaking the silence because time was abundant. That there were mornings when he stood in the middle of the yard for a long time. No training, no drawn sword, just stillness. Not forward, not back. Then he took a step. The foot touched the ground more lightly than the day before, and in that moment, he understood the first truth of discipline. If he did not respect each small action when no one demanded it, then every other ritual was only performance. The morning ended as the light began to show itself. He returned to the staircase, climbed back up, no faster than his descent. REI is not learned from books. It is forged in dawns no one witnesses. The days that followed carried no sign of progress, no praise, no look of recognition. Each morning began exactly like the one before. He woke while the sky was still dark, sat in silence long enough for the urge to return to bed to fade on its own. Only then did he rise, taking the familiar steps toward the staircase. Each wooden tread gave the same old sound. Each footfall landed in the exact place it had the day before. There was nothing new to learn, nothing to prove. This repetition began to wear down the will, not through pain, but through a steadiness so complete that, from the outside, everything seemed meaningless. He practiced bowing before entering the yard, not lower, only slower. He kept silence, even as others began speaking earlier. He waited for the space to open before moving on. There were mornings when his body performed every motion correctly, yet no feeling accompanied them, only action following action. He stood on the steps, looking down at the packed earth, and wondered without words whether this repetition was building something, or merely extending an empty habit. No answer came, and none was required day after day. The only thing that changed was the length of time he could stand still without needing a reason. He did not move forward to seek a new feeling, nor step back to seek comfort. He stayed, and within that very monotony, something quiet occurred. He no longer needed motivation to bow. His body remembered. When morning came, he descended the steps as he always had, but this time, his footsteps no longer asked why. The storm did not arrive at night. It came just as morning began. Rain lashed the training yard, softening the packed earth beneath each step. The wind carried a sharp chill, sweeping through the corridor and cutting straight into the open spaces between the wooden pillars. No one demanded that training continue. He stood on the steps, his robe already soaked. The yard below was emptier than usual. Many had gone back inside. He did not descend at once, not to wait for orders, only because his body needed one more beat to steady itself when his foot touched the ground. Mud clung to the soles of his sandals. Each step now required greater attention to avoid slipping. No haste, no display. The wind turned the sound of rain into chaos. Familiar rhythms vanished. Only breath remained, blending with the uneven fall of water. He bowed before beginning. No one saw it. Yet that bow was no lighter than on dry days. At times the rain grew so heavy that he had to stop in the middle of the yard. Not forward, not back, only still, letting water run over his shoulders, down his back, across his face. His body trembled, but his feet held their place in that moment. He understood something the quiet mornings had never taught. When conditions become harsh, ritual does not disappear. It is the last thing left to hold on to. He continued to train, slower, more grounded. When the storm eased, the yard held only scattered footprints in the softened earth. He returned to the steps, climbed back up in silence. That morning brought no victory, but it left behind an understanding that needed no words. Ray does not keep a person courteous when things are easy. It keeps a person from becoming chaotic when the world begins to lose its order. After the storm, everything became easier. The training yard dried out, mornings grew less cold, practice sessions filled again. That was when a subtler challenge appeared. Some shortened their bows. No one corrected them. No one complained. Everything still functioned. Some walked straight into the yard without pausing on the steps, not from disrespect, only to save time. He saw it all. He did not react. He did not correct anyone. But each morning, standing before the staircase, he faced the same choice. Not between right and wrong, but between convenience and holding the line. No one checked. No one acknowledged it. Keeping ritual now brought no sense of virtue. It only made him slower than the others. There were mornings when he stood there for a long time. The yard was already active. The sound of blades striking echoed below. He did not advance. He did not retreat. If he stepped down immediately, no one would say a word. If he held one more beat, no one would praise him. In the end, he bowed. Not deeper, not slower than yesterday. And in that moment, what was reinforced was not the ritual, but the boundary within him. An unyielding spirit is not shown by resisting others. It lies in refusing to compromise with oneself when no one is forcing it. When he stepped into the yard, his footsteps remained steady, not from fear of being left behind, not from a desire to stand out, only because he had chosen a path that required no explanation. Change did not arrive as a recognized moment. No one named it. There was no ceremony, no looks of surprise, yet morning began differently. He stepped onto the corridor before daylight had fully settled. There was no need to count the rhythm. His body found the staircase as if it had always known the way. The wooden steps were still old. The sound was the same as every day. Only the footsteps no longer asked questions. He paused on the steps and bowed in silence, not to observe courtesy, but to confirm a state that had stabilized within him. That pause was no longer an effort. It was nature. Others began to adjust to that rhythm, not because he asked them to, but because steadiness always draws what surrounds it back into order. When he stood in the yard, no signal was needed. Distance held itself. Words stepped back. Silence appeared where it belonged. Rei was no longer something he practiced. It was how he was present. The morning ended like any other. He returned to the steps, climbed up, unhurried. The glow of discipline does not shine. It does not attract, but it keeps things from collapsing. And in that quietness, he became a point of support without standing at the center. The challenge was not announced. It arrived on a morning when everything seemed already settled. The training yard was more crowded than usual. People had come from elsewhere. New gazes, footsteps not yet accustomed to the old rhythm. He stood on the steps, looking down at the space, waiting to be used. No one asked him to yield. No one ordered him to move forward, but the distance closed too quickly. Someone stepped straight into the yard. No pause, no bow. Not as a challenge, only to assert presence. The air changed at once. Voices softened. Movements slowed. He could step down immediately. No one would stop him. He could remain silent, let it pass, allow things to drift, or he could hold one beat, just one, and let this morning unfold differently. He remained still, not forward, not backed on. In that moment, there was no enemy before him, only an unspoken question directed toward those watching. If order is broken in silence, is it still order? He bowed, not toward the other man, but toward the space between them. Then he stepped into the yard, slower than every eye expected. There was no conflict, no argument, yet the other man stopped. The distance opened, the old rhythm returned. The morning continued. No one said a word, and in that moment, the challenge ended, not through victory, but by denying chaos the chance to begin. The transformation did not make him into a different person. It clarified who he had always been. Morning still began in silence. The staircase was still old. The wooden steps still gave a soft sound beneath each footfall, but there was no longer tension in the pauses before. He had to remind himself to bow. Now, his body found that rhythm on its own, not from fear of violation, not from a desire to be recognized. He stepped into the yard as if the world were already prepared to receive that order. Distance held itself without being asked. Words appeared at the right moment, then withdrew. The difference did not lie in the eyes of others. It lay in the fact that he no longer had to check himself each morning before. Silence was something he had to guard. Now it gathered around him on its own, not imposed, not spreading too far. Rei was no longer a principle he pursued. It was how he walked, how he stood still, and how he chose when no one demanded it. If once he needed strength to hold order in place, now order existed without requiring strength. Morning came to an end. He returned to the steps, climbed up, unhurried. There was nothing to celebrate, nothing left to prove, only the world around him, no longer out of rhythm. You may think that respect is something meant for others, a gesture, a courtesy, a social ritual. But what if respect is actually the way you keep yourself from spilling beyond your own limits each morning? Every day has a staircase you must step down, a moment of silence before action, the choice between rushing ahead and holding the rhythm no one is watching. And precisely because of that, the step matters. Who do you bow to or what, when no reward is waiting? If you begin to hold one extra beat each morning, will the world around you change, or will you be the one who changes first? If this story made you pause a little longer today, keep that silence. And if you want to continue walking this path, stay, share, and subscribe, so that each morning is no longer passed through unconsciously.